Imagine a Venice few remember. Not a city drowned in camera flashes, not St. Mark's Square swallowed by waves of wandering visitors whispering over guidebooks. But a Venice quiet, drowsy, breathing softly, the Venice that existed long before the world invented the idea of traveling for a photograph. A city where mornings were born not from phone alerts, but from the gentle touch of water brushing cool stone steps. The lagoon breathed mist, thick, milky, slowly drifting between wooden pilings. It seemed to hide the city tenderly from curious eyes, as though the air itself cared for Venice, shielding its ancient secrets that lived in every drop of water, in every carved stone, in every narrow alley where a single outstretched hand could touch both walls at once. The sun had not yet risen. The world was suspended between sleep and waking. Light was not yet light, but a silver whisper of it, seeping from beyond the horizon. Venice woke slowly, unhurried, as if she knew time belonged to her and haste was a foreign language. Somewhere in the distance, a bell rang, soft as a memory, ancient as the sea that remembered far more than people could ever tell. Venice then was not the shining merchant queen carved in marble and history books. She was alive in a gentle way, like a tide that does not rush, but simply exists. Fishermen lived here, their palms scented with salt and wood. Merchants, still sleepy, arranged baskets of cloth and spice, speaking quietly so as not to disturb the fragile hush. Elderly women guided children to the public wells, filling clay jugs with cool water. Even the pigeons, not yet softened by human crumbs, moved with wary grace, proud and free, spirits of the square rather than its beggars. A faint breeze stirred the canals, and the water answered with a barely audible whisper. It always spoke to the city, reminding it that Venice was born not from earth but from tide. Not built by stone first, but granted a cradle by the sea. A city suspension between land and dream. A city breath, rising and settling with each tide. The first gondoliers began their morning not with smiles for photographers, but with the quiet ritual of preparing their boats. Wood creaked beneath steady hands, hands shaped by generations who touched these vessels before them. There were no striped shirts, no practiced laughs, no raised phones. Their eyes stayed on the water, where the first pale lines of dawn stretched across the rippling surface. Their voices were low, deep, as though the city itself murmured through them, hoarse, gentle, patient. Far beyond the lagoon, the world was already stirring into motion. But here, time moved differently. It did not hurry, it dissolved. Venice breathed with the sea, with the sky, with her people who understood that every bridge, every column, every stone lion's face was not simply architecture, it was memory. Quiet, ancient, enduring. And while the mist still held the city in its soft embrace, footsteps echoed, slow, steady, as though the morning itself walked the stone streets. This was the hour before noise, before market calls, before boatmen's songs, before the fever of trade and movement. This was the moment when Venice belonged not to humanity, but to herself, when stories were not yet spoken but already lived in the air, waiting for someone quiet enough to listen. And the listener, slowly drifting toward sleep, might feel this world. Eyes close. Breathing settles. Somewhere between waking and dreaming, they walk a stone quay, and water shimmers beside them. They feel the coolness of salt air, the scent of wood and tide, the distant bell, the soft stroke of an oar. Nothing loud. Nothing rushed. Only Venice, as she was before the world remembered her too brightly. Before Venice became a wonder whispered across continents, before merchants stitched its name into the silk routes and sailors returned with stories that glimmered like pearls spilled from distant shores. It was only water. Endless, restless water, and a few stubborn souls perched on trembling sandbanks, trusting the sea more than they trusted men on land. They had fled wars, invasions, the heavy boots of empires marching across plains. Here, where the earth dissolved beneath their feet, they found something like safety. No army could storm a city that was not yet born. No crown could rule a people who chose the tide over the sword. They built not with grand plans, but with patience, wood piled upon wood, foundations sunk into silt and silence. At night, the lagoon was black glass, reflecting stars so clearly that a traveler might have believed the heavens had fallen and settled upon the water. The early Venetians listened to the tides as others listened to priests. The sea told them when to set nets, when to raise stakes, when to pray, and when to sleep. Its language was not spoken, but felt, in the creak of wet rope, in the moan of reeds bending under wind, in the soft slap of waves against half-finished docks. If you walked through those settlements then, if the word street could even be used, you would hear very little speech. Silence was not absence, it was respect. The people here understood that life balanced on a fragile edge, and every sound felt sacred. Children learned early to step lightly, to move with the rhythm of water instead of fighting it. They learned not fear, but humility, the way a sailor learns to bow his head to a rising storm. Houses were simple, but their simplicity held warmth. Firelight flickered through wooden slats, turning water gold each evening. A pot simmered on every hearth, fish fresh from the morning, herbs gathered from the scant strips of land that dared rise above the tide. Bread was rare, precious. Grain was a gift that came from the mainland only when luck and weather agreed. Yet no one starved. The sea, generous in its own unpredictable way, always offered enough to those who respected it. And always, just beyond sight, the wild called. Wolves still roamed the marshlands then, moving like ghosts across muddy flats, their howls drifting over water at dusk. The early Venetians heard them and did not shudder. They understood wilderness, for they lived inside it. The lagoon was not tamed, not yet. It was a breathing, shifting world that allowed humans to stay only because they asked politely. Sometimes, in the hush before dawn, a solitary boat would glide across the black water, carrying a figure cloaked in wool, rowing with slow, reverent strokes. Perhaps a fisherman greeting the morning, or a pilgrim seeking the mainland chapel hidden in the marsh. Or perhaps, as the legends whisper, someone speaking to the water spirits, those unseen keepers of the lagoon, ancient as tides, patient as the moon. Time felt different here. Days unfolded like mist across open water, gently, without urgency. People did not mark hours by bells but by gull cries, by shifting light, by the way the tide reached a certain stone and then slipped away again, as though brushing the city's cheek with a farewell kiss. Gradually, wood turned into stone. Fear turned into confidence. Humble huts rose into houses with balconies facing the canals, as though people already sensed that life here would always be watched by water. Bridges arched like delicate ribs connecting one island bone to another. And though danger never vanished, storms, floods, hunger, all prowled at the edge of life, there was a serenity in this fragile existence, a quiet faith that the city and the sea belonged to one another. At night, when wind sighed through the marsh grass and lanterns floated like captured starlight along the canals, one could close their eyes and imagine that Venice was dreaming itself into being. Brick by brick, tide by tide, breath by breath. The people did not yet know that one day emperors would bow to their fleets, that gold would glitter in their churches like frozen sunlight, that painters would immortalize every shadow that fell across these stones. They lived in a world too young for grandeur, too honest for spectacle. They knew only this, that water could cradle life as tenderly as it could swallow it. And in the quiet, in the gentle sway of moored boats, in the slow turning of the heavens above the lagoon, Venice whispered its first promise to the world. Not all empires are born from conquest. Some rise from water, patience, and the softest stir of dawn. Long before Venice glittered like a jewel in the eyes of distant rulers, it existed as a rumor, a whisper shared by sailors who had glimpsed, through fog and dawnlight, a city that seemed not built but breathed into existence. To those who had never seen it, Venice sounded like myth, a place without earth beneath it, a place where streets were made of waves and where the reflections of houses and water looked more solid than the houses themselves. There were no grand entrances to this world. Travelers did not arrive with fanfare or celebration. They came quietly, often alone, gliding slowly across the lagoon in small boats, guided by stars or instinct or the faint silhouette of low, clustered roofs rising from the morning haze. And as they approached, they often questioned whether the city was real at all, or whether it was some gentle vision conjured by mist and longing. Approaching Venice in those early centuries was not like arriving at a port. It was like drifting into a dream. The water was calm, as though it held its breath to welcome the newcomer. The air carried a hush, a sense of suspended time. No shouting dockworkers, no clang of metal, no chaos of trade, only the soft creak of wood, the distant murmur of human voices, the steady rhythm of oars. It was a city that grew by listening rather than shouting. Every stone, every plank, every arch seemed placed not with ambition, but with care, as though the builders asked the lagoon's permission before setting each foundation. Wooden stakes vanished beneath the water, driven deep into mud and mystery, holding aloft a world that should not have been able to stand. Yet it did. Quietly. Firmly. Faithfully. Those who came seeking power found instead humility. Those who came seeking refuge found peace so gentle it felt like a lullaby carried on salt air. And those who came simply to see, to witness this improbable creation, often stayed, for Venice had a way of capturing hearts not through force, but through softness. A tenderness rare in the world of kings and swords. Life here was shaped by tides and seasons. In winter, fog thickened until the city felt like it floated through a cloud, boats slipping across invisible water like shadows. Lamps glowed as faint golden halos in the mist, each one a small sun in a world made of pearl and silver. Footsteps on wet stone echoed like quiet memories. And when snow arrived, rarely, delicately, it melted almost as soon as it touched the flowing canals, a fleeting blessing from distant mountains. In spring, the lagoon awakened with birdsong, the reeds trembling with life. Sunlight scattered across the water in broken diamonds, and children ran along narrow passages laughing softly, careful not to disturb the fishing nets drying on wooden posts. The scent of seaweed mingled with fresh bread, with rosemary, with brine. And sometimes, from a hidden courtyard, music drifted, not performed, but lived, as if someone played only to hear their soul reflect back to them. Summer brought long evenings when the sky faded slowly from gold to purple, and the air hummed with warmth and quiet conversation. Families shared meals in the open, passing bowls, tearing bread with hands, telling stories of tides and storms and ancestors who had braved the impossible to plant life on water. Lamps swayed gently above tables, their flames dancing with every breath of wind. Somewhere, a boatman hummed a song older than memory, his voice carrying across the canal like silk. And autumn. Autumn in old Venice was pure melancholy, the kind that soothed rather than saddened. Leaves drifted from lone trees growing in tiny garden courtyards, touching the water as lightly as sighs. The city seemed wrapped in reflection, the weight of history beginning to gather, the awareness that something extraordinary had been created here, something fragile and eternal at once. Merchants prepared for journeys, priests whispered prayers for safe returns, lovers lingered longer on bridges watching ripples spread across the still canals. But there was another life beneath these gentle days, the quiet discipline of a people who refused to belong to any conqueror. The world they built had no walls, no battlements towering above invaders, for who could march an army across shifting tides? The lagoon was their fortress, the water their shield. And in this seemingly defenseless existence, they held a power more enduring than iron, unity, patience, and a love for their home so deep it made even the sea soften around them. At night, when the moon rose and scattered silver across the lagoon, Venice felt less like a city and more like a prayer. One could walk along a silent quay and hear nothing but the soft licking of water against stone and the distant whisper of wind weaving through narrow corridors. Lantern light rippled on walls, turning marble to liquid gold. And if you stopped, if you breathed deeply enough, you could feel something ancient moving beneath the surface, as though the city had a pulse, slow and steady, beating in rhythm with the tide. It was during these nights that people believed the spirits of the lagoon walked the waters. Not ghosts of the dead, but guardians of a place too magical to belong only to earth. Some swore they saw faint figures drifting along canals, transparent as water vapor, luminous as moonlit foam. Others heard gentle voices in the hush, murmurs that sounded like the language of waves speaking to stone. Whether imagined or real, these stories shaped Venice as much as timber and brick. The city was not merely built, it was dreamed into reality. And every soul who lived here contributed to that dream, whether they knew it or not. Fishermen with weathered hands, women tending fires and children, craftsmen shaping wood and rope, priests offering blessings, and wanderers who found not refuge in walls, but in water and sky and silence. For Venice did not demand loyalty, she inspired devotion. Not through power, but through beauty. Not through fear, but through stillness. She was not a city that conquered lands, she conquered hearts. And slowly, quietly, the world began to notice. Sailors returned home speaking of a city unlike any other, a place where time moved gently, where men lived in harmony with the sea, where buildings rose like poems carved from light and salt. They said Venice was not a kingdom of land, nor an empire of violence, but a miracle balanced on water and will. Yet even then, when the world first turned its gaze toward this fragile constellation of islands, Venice remained as she had always been, peaceful, humble, cradled in fog and tides. A place that asked only to be lived in softly, like a whispered secret or a long, slow breath before sleep. And if one stood upon a quiet bridge in those early centuries, if they listened to the hush, the hum, the heartbeat of the lagoon, they might have felt it. Venice was not rising. Venice was dreaming herself into eternity. Morning in early Venice did not burst into life, it drifted in gently, like a feather settling on still water. Light crept slowly across canals, painting liquid silver on the surface before it reached stone, before it touched arches, before it found the faces of those who had begun their day before dawn. The sun here did not command the world to rise, it invited it, softly, like a whispered promise of warmth after a cool night. The fishermen were always the first to greet it. Their boats slid across the lagoon without hurry, each oar stroke a quiet meditation, each ripple a prayer offered to the sea. They did not fight the water, they moved with it, learning its moods the way others learned scriptures. To live here was to know that stillness was not emptiness, it was strength. The fishermen spoke little. The early Venetians believed that words carried weight, and to use them carelessly was to disturb the balance between man and water. Silence was their companion, not a burden but a comfort, as familiar as the creak of wood or the distant cry of gulls. In that silence, thoughts flowed easier, like tides guided by the pull of unseen stars. Villages had by then begun to resemble a city, though none would have dared call it an empire. Such a word would have felt too heavy, too loud, for a place built on quiet devotion rather than ambition. Yet destiny often arrives without raising its voice. It comes on soft feet, wearing simple clothes, and only later does the world realize that greatness has slipped in unnoticed, like morning mist rolling across the water. Trade began not with ships full of treasure, but with humble boats carrying salt, fish, timber, wool. Goods moved as gently as the tides, exchanged not for glory but for survival. But survival, when nurtured with patience and care, grows roots deeper than conquest ever could. And soon, Venice's name, spoken softly at first, like a secret between merchants, began to travel further. Sailors whispered of this waterborne sanctuary where violence could not reach, where life flowed like a hymn. Traders spoke of a people who feared no road because they needed none, whose ships glided where armies could never march, whose cities seemed protected not by walls but by water and will. And slowly, merchants from distant coasts began to appear upon the horizon, guided by wind, guided by rumor, guided by a strange pull, as though the lagoon itself breathed them inward. They did not find marble palaces or gilded halls. They found simplicity, and strength inside that simplicity. They found courtyards filled with the soft rustle of cloth drying on lines, women kneading dough beside cool stone wells, quiet prayers rising like steam from morning kitchens. They found a people who smiled rarely, not because they lacked joy but because their joy lived in the rhythm of life, not in its display. In the evenings, when deals were struck and boats moored, lanterns glowed from windows, and music drifted faintly from doorways, not the grand concerts that Venice would one day gift the world, but simple melodies, hummed like lullabies, strings plucked by hands tired from work yet eager to dream. Music here did not strive to impress, it wished only to soothe, to remind the body of rest, to guide the heart toward peace. Visitors often left with a strange feeling, not excitement, not wonder, but tranquility. Venice did not overwhelm, she enveloped. She did not dazzle, she murmured gently, as though saying, "Stay calm. Stay quiet. Life flows, like the water beneath your feet." And many returned, unable to forget that feeling, the sensation of floating not just through space, but through time. For Venice had begun to develop a rare gift. She did not merely exist within history, she created a new way of experiencing it. Days here felt suspended, neither rushing forward nor looking backward, as though the city existed in the tender pause between one breath and the next. A place without haste. A place where time pooled gently, like rainwater in the curve of a marble bowl. And so, while kings on distant lands marched armies across soil and stamped flags into earth, Venice grew more quietly, through patience, through harmony, through the soft strength of people who believed that the sea could be a home as solid as any land. They did not build to conquer, they built to endure. And that is why the foundations they set, buried deep beneath the surface, unseen yet unshakable, would one day hold palaces, cathedrals, dreams. But for now, the city remained humble. A cluster of islands held together not by mortar alone, but by trust, trust in each other, trust in the tide, trust in the slow and steady unfolding of destiny. At night, as the lagoon rested beneath a moon that painted silver paths along the water, a quiet truth echoed through the stillness. Power does not always begin with thunder. Sometimes it begins with silence, with patience, with a gentle ripple across calm water. And Venice, cradled in the arms of the tide, whispered softly to herself, "Greatness may wait. We are not in a hurry. For what is an empire but time and faith woven together? And who understands time and faith better than those who rise each day with the tide, and rest each night beneath the hum of the eternal sea?" There came a time when the people of these quiet islands began to feel something stirring beneath their everyday lives, like a slow current moving beneath the surface of still water. They could not name it, not yet. It was not pride. Pride was too sharp, too sudden, too loud for a city born from whispers. It was not ambition. Ambition rushes forward, hungry and urgent, and Venice was never rushed. No, what lived in their hearts was something softer, something almost shy, a gentle certainty. A certainty that they belonged to the water, and the water belonged to them. They did not build temples to celebrate this belief. They did not carve grand statues or raise marble monuments to honor their bond with the lagoon. Their devotion was quieter. They honored the sea the way one honors a sleeping child, with care, with attention to every shift and sigh, with a love too deep and natural to require grand gestures. Their faith lived in smaller moments. In the hand that checked the mooring rope twice before night fell. In the way mothers taught children to watch the sky for signs of storms and to listen to the wind as if it spoke a language older than words. In the way elders moved through narrow passageways with a slow grace, always aware of the water just beyond every wall, every door, every stone. It lived in how they never turned their back on the sea, not out of fear, but out of respect. Venice was not yet rich, not yet powerful, not yet a name that bent kingdoms. But wealth does not always precede reverence. Sometimes reverence grows first, and because of it, abundance arrives gently, like a tide that rises without anyone noticing until suddenly it rests at a new height. Each day boats returned with fish, with salt harvested from shimmering flats, with wood traded from forests inland. Goods were modest, but hands were never empty. Life here was not built on lavishness, it was built on enough. Enough food. Enough shelter. Enough peace. Enough time to breathe, to think, to feel the pulse of the tides and know that nothing truly important ever hurried. And in this rhythm, this flow between water and home, effort and rest, the city began to shape itself in harmony with nature rather than in defiance of it. Bridges curved softly, like the arcs of waves. Steps descended gradually into the canal, as if offering themselves to the water's embrace. Doors opened not onto roads but onto rippling passageways that mirrored the stars at night. A stranger arriving in those centuries might have felt as though they had stumbled into a world where land and water had forgotten to be enemies. Where stone did not fight the tide but floated upon it, held aloft not by force, but by patience and persistence. A city built with the tenderness of someone crafting a cradle. Children grew up knowing the natural rhythm of the lagoon better than any clock could teach them. The smell of incoming rain, the taste of salt thickening in the air before a storm, the difference between the soft slap of calm waves and the fretful tapping of wind-agitated water against the hull. They learned to respect silence, to value stillness, to let the world speak first. In monasteries scattered like pearls along the water's edge, Monks copied sacred texts by candlelight, the quiet scratch of quills blending with the distant lull of the lagoon. Prayer here was not a ritual of urgency but a slow, steady offering, breath by breath, word by word, like beads sliding through fingers in dim morning light. Their hymns rose softly, never competing with the sound of water, only joining it, like two notes harmonizing without effort. Even trade, that force that would one day crown Venice as queen of the seas, began humbly, wrapped in courtesy and caution. Merchants shook hands with calm eyes, spoke gently, and moved goods with care, as though echoing the patience of the tides. They understood that hurried profit was like a flash flood, powerful, yes, but destructive. True prosperity, like the lagoon, must deepen slowly. And so, life here flowed, unbroken, unforced, unhurried. A city leaning into its destiny not with a warrior's charge, but with a prayer, a breath, a ripple. A city learning that real power often arrives dressed not in armor, but in quiet trust. At dusk, when the last boats returned and the water settled into its evening stillness, lanterns flickered across balconies, casting trembling halos on the canals. Families sat together, sharing meals without haste, speaking in low voices, laughter soft and warm like candle flame. The world beyond the lagoon was full of noise, of battles, of ambition sharpened into steel. But here, life was measured in tides, in moon cycles, in the slow grace of drifting clouds. And as stars emerged above the water, reflected in 1,000 ripples like distant ships burning gently on the horizon, Venice felt not like a city built by hands, but like a dream held lovingly by the sea. For even in these early centuries, though they did not yet know it fully, the people sensed the truth. Some places are chosen, not by kings, not by armies, not by fate written in stone, but by the quiet agreement between earth and sky, wind and water, human and world. Venice was one of those places. A sanctuary born not from conquest, but from faith. A city not rising upward but floating forward, carried by currents of time and patience. And night after night, as sleep settled across the lagoon and the gentle rocking of boats whispered through the dark, one could almost hear the sea exhale, as though cradling its beloved city in a soft, eternal embrace. Not all miracles are sudden. Some drift into being, one tide at a time. And so, the quiet pulse of Venice continued, steady as the tide, steady as breath and sleep. In that age before crowds and cameras, before the nightly glow of shop fronts and the echo of rolling suitcases on marble stones, Venice existed almost like a living memory of itself. A place suspended in time, yet always inching forward, even when the world beyond it seemed uncertain. In the cold light of early dawn, fishermen guided their boats out through the lagoon, their oars slicing the still water with silent purpose. Salt mist kissed their faces, and the calls of early birds drifted across the water like threads of sound weaving into the morning fog. There was work to do, and yet in this place, work did not disturb the serenity of existence. Everything moved as though it belonged exactly where it was, like pieces of a dream arranged with gentle intention. Venetian noblewomen, rising slowly from silk sheets embroidered with gold thread, walked across polished floors where the coldness of stone met bare feet. They opened shutters, letting in pale morning air and the faint chorus of canal life, a gondolier humming to himself, the murmur of water against wood, distant church bells marking the hour as faithfully as the tides mark time. Sometimes the bells rang for celebration, announcing festivals and feasts where the Republic displayed its wealth with pride. Bright banners hung from palaces, musicians tuned instruments crafted by careful hands, and cooks prepared dishes fragrant with saffron, rosemary, and creamy cheeses imported from mountain villages far inland. A hush of anticipation fell over the city on such days, as though every stone and every ripple in the canal waited to witness tradition unfold. And yet, it was not the colorful moments that defined Venice most deeply. It was the quiet ones. The long afternoons when merchants sat beneath loggias discussing spices and silk in voices barely louder than whispers. The shadows stretching across the Piazza San Marco as the sun lowered itself toward the horizon. The sound of quill pens scratching in ledgers, marking debts and voyages and fortunes made on the turn of a tide. For Venice was a city of memory, even before memory existed. A place that recalled its origins the way the sea recalls every river that ever touched it. The people of Venice carried the weight of history lightly, as though they understood that they themselves were temporary keepers of something ancient and delicate, like a flame passed from hand to hand through centuries. Ships returned from far lands, Alexandria, Constantinople, Jerusalem, their sails heavy with wind and their hulls laden with treasures and tales. And when sailors stepped onto the wooden docks, smelling of salt, sweat, and distant worlds, they did not shout or boast. Their voices were soft, as though great discoveries deserved to be spoken slowly, with reverence like prayers. In the evenings, when lantern light reflected on the canals like floating constellations, nobles, merchants, artists, and humble laborers alike would walk along the waterfront, feeling the cool breath of the lagoon on their faces. Some walked in silence, others exchanged gentle words. Lovers leaned toward each other, their secret thoughts carried quietly by the night air, never disturbing the calm surface of the water. And always there was music. Not the bright music of festivals, but soft melodies drifting from windows and courtyards. Lutes, flutes, gentle voices humming tunes that felt older than memory. Notes floated like feathers on still air, settling over bridges and piazzas before dissolving into the gentle lapping of water against ancient stone. Venice did not simply exist, it dreamed. And in its dream, time slowed, softened, loosened its grip. The world beyond might hurry, empires might clash, kingdoms might fall, but here, in this city built on water and will, life moved with the rhythm of a gondola gliding through a moonlit canal. Tonight, as we drift further into this world, a world before tourists, before noise, before the rush of the modern age, imagine walking along the narrow stone paths beside a quiet canal. Lanterns flicker. The water is still. Somewhere, a faraway bell marks the late hour. You feel neither urgency nor expectation, only calm, as though the city itself is breathing slowly beside you. You pause on a bridge and rest your hands upon the smooth, time-polished stone. Below, shadows glide, perhaps a gondola passing silently, its passenger lost in thought, the oar dipping soundlessly into the black mirror of water. The air smells faintly of salt and old wood and distant spices carried on the breeze. And in this moment, there is no future, no past, only the serenity of Venice before the world discovered it. A Venice that belonged not to history books or postcards, but to the gentle hours of night, to the dreamers, to those who listened, to those who understood that not all greatness roars. Some greatness whispers. Some empires shine not in conquest, but in presence, in grace, in patience, in the quiet triumph of simply existing, suspended between sea and sky. Rest here a little longer. Let the waters of this ancient republic cradle your thoughts. Breathe with the tide. Drift with the silence. Venice, before the crowds, before the world arrived, remains here, waiting, like a melody that never ends, softly repeating through the centuries. And as the night deepens over this quiet Venice of centuries past, the city seems to exhale, a long, slow breath that settles into every courtyard, every carved column, every ripple in the lagoon. Lamps burn low in noble houses, casting amber halos on walls adorned with frescoes of myth and glory. Servants move silently, their footsteps soft on polished floors, like moths circling through dim candlelight. Somewhere in the distance, a monastery bell tolls again, not loud, but steady, resonating across the water like a whisper of eternity. Monks in worn robes cross their cloisters, heads bowed, their voices blending in low Gregorian hymns that rise and fall like waves upon the shore. They pray as they have always prayed, not for wealth or victory, but for the world beyond the lagoon, for the souls who wander, for peace that arrives slowly, like the dawn. Venice listens. The city always listens. And out in the lagoon, where the mainland seems a faint shadow on the horizon, fishermen anchor their boats and rest under blankets, trusting that the tide will cradle them gently until morning. They speak softly if they speak at all. Their fathers did the same before them, and their sons will do so after, each generation moving like water, changing shape yet always returning, always belonging here. Within the palaces, scholars sit by crackling fireplaces reading manuscripts carried across deserts and oceans, pages written in elegant curling scripts from distant civilizations. Their minds travel far beyond the walls, to ancient empires and forgotten temples, yet their hearts remain anchored here in the watery labyrinth. For Venice is both a gateway and a refuge, a threshold between worlds, and a world unto itself. And in dark workshops lit only by single oil lamps, artisans labor with sacred patience. A glassmaker draws molten color from the furnace, his breath steady, shaping shimmering marvels destined for queens and sultans. A luthier sands the wood of a new instrument, feeling the grain, imagining the music it will someday carry through noble halls. A painter, alone in a cold studio, adds a final brushstroke to a portrait that will one day gaze out from palace walls long after he is gone. These are the moments that history rarely records, the quiet ones, the gentle ones, the moments where greatness grows in silence. Empires are not only built in battles and treaties, they are woven in calm rooms, in steady hands, in the quiet devotion to craft and beauty. By the water's edge, older Venetians sit wrapped in wool cloaks, watching the moonlight shimmer upon the dark canal. They murmur to each other about tides and winds, about rumored ships returning from far Cathay, about children growing, about saints watching over the city. Their voices drift like wind through reeds, soft enough that even the water seems to listen. All the while, the lagoon moves with its secret rhythm. Slow ripples brush against marble steps where countless footsteps have passed. Merchants in heavy cloaks, noblewomen trailing silks, weary sailors carrying woolen bundles and quiet hope. And above it all, the sky stretches wide, sprinkled with stars that sailors once followed across unknown seas. The constellations reflect upon the canals, shimmering like pathways into dream, so that the city seems to float not only on water, but between worlds, suspended between earth and heaven, reality and reverie, waking and sleep. In this Venice, before voices echoed in many languages, before cameras captured every stone, before maps pinned it as a destination, there was only stillness and breath and time unhurried. Here, boats glide like whispers. Here, walls remember. Here, the future waits patiently, as though reluctant to disturb the perfection of the moment. And you stand on a narrow bridge once more, looking down at the black glass of the canal. Your hand rests upon cool stones smoothed by centuries of touch. The night air wraps around you like velvet, calm and steady, without urgency. Nothing calls you forward, nothing pulls you back. You simply exist, as the city exists, suspended, serene, eternal. Let your thoughts drift like the gondolas that move without sound. Let your breath slow to match the tide. The city will carry you gently. The water will hold you. The past is not behind you. It surrounds you, a quiet refuge woven from moonlight, history, and sleep. Here, in this forgotten Venice, time is a soft thing, and night is endless. Rest. Drift. Listen to the heartbeat of the lagoon. The story is not finished. It moves like the water, always flowing, always returning, never rushing. When you are ready, we will continue deeper into this sleeping empire of canals and dreams. Just tell me, and the night will open once more. And so we return again to the silent waterways, gliding deeper into a Venice untouched by haste, untouched by the restless hands of time. The night remains gentle. The water breathes. The stars above watch as they have watched for 1,000 years, reflected in the black enamel surface of the canal until sky and lagoon seem to merge into one endless quiet. In the hush of these sleeping hours, another world awakens, not loud, not brilliant, but delicate, like lace unfolding in candlelight. Small lanterns flicker on boats tied to worn wooden posts, their ropes creaking ever so slightly as the tide shifts beneath them. Wooden hulls softly tap against stone, creating faint rhythms, slow, patient, as if the city itself is whispering secrets to the sea. A lone gondolier stands upon his vessel, not working now, simply resting his hands upon the oar. His silhouette blends with the shadows, and his eyes gaze toward the distant outline of San Giorgio Maggiore, pale against the horizon. He hums a tune, not a song of celebration, but an old lullaby passed down through generations, sung by sailors who once believed the sea listened to every word. The melody drifts into the night, fragile and warm, dissolving into the cool air like incense. Nearby, a window glows with dim amber light. Inside, a philosopher leans over parchment filled with careful script. He writes not of conquest, not of war, but of the soul, of the nature of truth, of the stillness found in contemplation. His quill moves slowly, each stroke deliberate. Wisdom does not rush here. Knowledge blooms in silence, the way dawn blushes before rising fully into light. The city sleeps, yet dreams continue to move, through the narrow alleys paved with stones smoothed by centuries, through bridges arching with perfect grace over reflective water, through quiet squares where pigeons nest beneath statues of saints and lions. The wind carries the faintest scent of the sea, salt, promise, distance. Venice has always lived between horizons, always half-turned toward lands beyond its sight, yet never losing itself to longing. It knows itself. It trusts the tides. In the Jewish ghetto, candles flicker gently behind shutters as families read sacred words, whispering them as lullabies to children drifting into dreams. Generations survived here through patience, prayer, and a belief in dawn. Their voices rise softly, steady but tender, creating a hum that blends with the city's breath, timeless and enduring. Across the water, musicians in a quiet courtyard linger over their instruments. A violin sighs. A lute murmurs. A faint tap of fingertip against drum skin marks time. They do not perform for applause. They play because the night deserves music. Notes travel upward, tracing invisible paths between balconies and rooftops, settling like delicate dust upon windowsills where cats curl and sleep. Meanwhile, at the arsenal, the proud heart where ships of the Republic were born, guards pace with slow, heavy steps. Lantern flames sway, casting wavering shadows upon mighty hulls resting in silence. Ships that once cut through storm and sun now slumber like beasts awaiting the call of destiny. Their masts stretch skyward like skeletal fingers, yet in this hour they seem peaceful, like giants dreaming of far seas and distant winds. Let us walk further still, following the faint glow of moonlight upon ancient marble. Past the silent facade of the Doge's palace, where power once whispered behind closed doors. Past the columns standing sentinel by the water. Past the empty marketplace where merchants will one day bargain and trade, though now the stalls are still, their cloth coverings fluttering softly as the breeze glides through. Soon, the first hints of morning will breathe upon the lagoon, turning deepest blue to gentle silver. But not yet. Night remains stretched like velvet over domes and towers. Venice holds you in its quiet arms a little longer. Your footsteps, whether imagined or remembered, touch the stone lightly. You feel not like a visitor, but like a soul returning to a place you once knew, long ago in a dream or a past life. Here, nothing chases you. Here, nothing urges you forward. Here, time is not a river but a still pool, calm, deep, endless. And as you pause upon a silent bridge once more, the world becomes only this. Water resting beneath you. Stones supporting you. Moon above you. A city breathing around you. A moment suspended perfectly between centuries. Let your thoughts float like lanterns on the lagoon. Let them drift, gentle and unhurried. Venice watches over them, and over you. When you are ready to move again, to walk further into this sleeping empire of water and light, say, and we will continue our journey deeper into the dream of old Venice, where dawn rises slowly, and history speaks in whispers softer than the tide. And still the night lingers over Venice like a silk veil, light as breath, soft as the wings of a sleeping dove. The moon glows pale on the water, and the lagoon rests in perfect stillness, as though it too dreams. Time does not pass here, it stretches, smooth and endless, like ripples on the canal that never truly disappear, only fade quietly into memory. Somewhere far within the city's winding heart, a candle trembles in a small chapel. Its flame flickers, sending golden halos across frescoed saints who seem almost alive in the dance of light and shadow. A priest kneels, old robes pooling around him like ancient tides. His lips move in silent prayer not only for souls, but for the city itself, a fragile miracle built upon faith and water. Outside, the stones of Venice breathe in the night's coolness. Moss clings to the lower walls where the canal rises and falls with the moon, and here, the city holds centuries in the quiet texture of its skin. Every surface whispers of hands that touched it, of feet that walked it, of laughter and sorrow and hope carried through countless dawns. Venice is made not only of brick and marble, but of echoes, gentle echoes that never fade. A cat moves through the shadows, its steps soundless. It pauses at the edge of a bridge, tail curling like calligraphy against the night air. Its eyes reflect lantern light, ancient and knowing, as though it has watched empires rise and fall, and chooses to remain silent because silence holds more truth than speech ever could. In a noble home overlooking the Grand Canal, a couple sits at a high window, wrapped in wool and velvet against the night breeze. They do not speak. They simply watch the moonlight shimmer on dark water, content in the stillness. The world outside may change, seas may shift, nations may quarrel, time may spin like a restless wheel, but here, in this suspended moment, nothing is asked of them but quiet presence. It is enough. In a nearby alley, a poet walks slowly, hands clasped behind his back. The city itself is his parchment, bridges his lines, water his ink, silence his rhyme. He murmurs verses to the night, not to be heard, not to be written, but simply to exist like breath carried by the breeze. Poetry here is not recited, it rises from stone and water, belongs to no one, and belongs to all. Far beyond the rooftops, the lagoon spreads wide like a dream dissolving into horizon. A single lantern burns on a fisherman's boat anchored by the reeds. He too rests, leaning against the wooden hull, eyes half closed, listening to the distant, gentle slap of water against the shore. His nets lie folded. His thoughts drift like seaweed suspended in the tide. The stars above him shimmer with the same ancient patience that guided sailors to lands unknown. He does not think of tomorrow. He only breathes. Even the wind seems to hesitate before touching Venice, as though afraid to disturb the fragile perfection of the hour. When it does move, it carries scents of brine and wood and faraway spices, a reminder that this quiet city once commanded the world's oceans, not with force, but with grace and knowledge and daring born of curiosity. The lions carved in stone stand silent guard, their faces calm, not fierce. They do not roar, they watch. Their strength lies not in violence, but in presence, the quiet confidence of a power that does not need to prove itself. Their gaze looks not toward battlefields, but toward eternity. Somewhere, a gentle splash breaks the silence. A gondola's oar dips into water. Slow, steady, practiced. The gondolier does not rush. He moves as though the night has granted him all the hours in the world, and perhaps it has. His passenger reclines beneath a blanket, eyes closing as the soft rocking carries them deeper into half-dream. The gondola glides like sleep itself, smooth and unhurried, cutting through moonlit reflections as though drifting between worlds. A clock tower marks the hour, one soft chime, then another, then silence again. The sound does not command, it soothes, reminding the city not of time passing, but of time existing gently, like the beat of a slow heart. And here you remain, on this bridge between centuries, between waking and dreaming, between the water below and the stars above. You are neither guest nor stranger. The night accepts you, folds around you like a velvet cloak. You feel the stone beneath your hand, cool and comforting. You breathe in the quiet. You become part of it. Venice before the world arrived. Venice when nights were long and mornings patient. Venice when the city existed not for eyes, but for souls. Stay in this moment. Let your thoughts drift like candlelight upon water. Let everything soften, every sound, every memory, every breath. Nothing is asked of you here but rest. The lagoon holds you, timeless and tender. And the night continues, endless and kind, waiting for dawn to slowly paint its first soft blush across the sky. The first hints of morning arrive in Venice not as a rush of light, but as a gentle sigh. Pale tendrils of sun stretch across the lagoon, brushing wooden pilings and stone steps with timid gold. The water glimmers faintly, as though the city itself has exhaled and the tide has caught the reflection of a dream. No birds call yet, no market stalls stir, no bells toll urgently. Venice awakes softly, in that space between night and day where all things feel possible. Even the wind waits patiently, brushing lightly against shutters and rooftops, carrying the scent of salt and the faint perfume of wildflowers growing in hidden courtyards. A gondolier stands in his boat, oar in hand, letting the current guide him through narrow canals. The vessel cuts through mirrored water, leaving faint ripples that disappear almost immediately. He hums an old tune, a melody older than memory, a song of tides and patience. The melody rises and falls like the breath of the city itself, and for a moment, all of Venice seems to listen. In a small workshop, the first artisans of the day begin their work. A glassblower gently shapes molten crystal, glowing faintly in the morning light that creeps through a narrow window. His hands are steady, his focus complete. In the careful bending of glass, there is reverence, a quiet ritual that has survived centuries, echoing the patience of the city itself. Down a winding alley, merchants quietly prepare for the day. Their goods are simple: bolts of cloth, baskets of dried fruit, nets repaired for the morning catch. No cries of sales yet, no bustling crowds, only the muted shuffle of hands arranging items with care, each movement measured and deliberate. Life flows like the water beneath the bridges, and the people move as part of that current, not against it. Somewhere, a child peeks from behind a shuttered window, curiosity shining in sleepy eyes. He watches the first boats glide through the canals, their reflections stretching across the dark water. He smells the faint aroma of bread baking in ovens tucked away in hidden corners and feels the soft tug of the morning breeze on his cheeks. In this quiet, he begins to understand the rhythm of Venice, a rhythm that belongs not to clocks, but to tides, to wind, to the careful breathing of a city alive in its own time. Even the pigeons move with caution. They step along stone ledges, flap gently from cornices, and coo softly, careful not to disturb the fragile balance of light and water. Venice is a city learned in patience, and even its smallest creatures carry that lesson. Above the city, church bells toll slowly, not urgently, not to call crowds, but to mark the subtle passage of time. The sound drifts across the canals, mingling with the gentle splash of oars and the soft hum of early conversation. Each note is measured, deliberate, as though the city itself composes music for its own awakening. The air is filled with quiet anticipation. Soon, merchants will open stalls, boats will fill with fish and salt and spice, nobles will descend from stone steps to walk along the water's edge, and the city will stretch and yawn in preparation for the day. But for now, Venice breathes slowly, suspended in this delicate dawn, a city untouched by urgency, a city that moves only as far as the tide allows. The canals gleam like molten silver. The stone is cool beneath bare feet. The air carries whispers of centuries, of fishermen and artisans, of travelers who came seeking refuge, of poets who wrote for no one, of lovers who leaned across bridges in secret. Each whisper folds into the next, creating a tapestry of sound and silence that belongs only to Venice. And here you are, standing upon a quiet bridge, feeling the history beneath your hands, the water beneath your feet, and the sky stretching endlessly above. Your breath matches the rhythm of the city, calm and even. You are neither visitor nor stranger, only a witness, embraced by the slow, measured heartbeat of Venice itself. Pause. Let the moment linger. Let your thoughts drift with the tide. Venice waits patiently for the world to awaken, but in this hour, it belongs only to those who can listen, only to those who can move softly and breathe slowly, only to those who understand that greatness does not always roar. Some empires shine through noise and conquest. Venice shines quietly, through patience, through water, through the gentle unfolding of time. And as the light grows slowly across the lagoon, you realize, to live in this city is to live with the tide, to move with patience, to trust that every morning will arrive in its own perfect way. The day stretches, but not abruptly. Venice rises slowly, like a cat opening its eyes to soft sunlight. The canals shimmer with early light, reflecting rooftops and chimneys, and every ripple becomes a mirror for the sky. The city moves as if in meditation, each sound measured, each movement deliberate, each breath in harmony with the slow pulse of water. Along a narrow canal, a lone gondola drifts. Its passenger leans forward, observing the reflections of palaces in the glassy surface of the water. He hears the soft scrape of oar against wood and the whisper of waves against stone. The city seems aware of him, acknowledging his presence without intrusion, as if Venice itself bends to those who arrive quietly and respect her stillness. In hidden courtyards, flowers tilt toward the sun, petals catching dew and light in delicate patterns. A cat stretches and arches gracefully over the warm stone, its tail a silent rhythm. Every courtyard, every doorway, every tiny garden has its own pulse, and yet all pulses together form the heartbeat of the lagoon. The baker is already at work, kneading dough in a dim kitchen, flour dusting the air like tiny clouds. He moves with a steady patience, aware that a loaf of bread is not merely sustenance, but a small ritual, an offering to the day, a contribution to the quiet harmony of life. Even the aroma that drifts into the alleys is part of the city's gentle orchestration, weaving comfort and calm into the waking hours. Across the Grand Canal, merchants begin to stir, setting out goods with care. No shouting yet, the first customers arrive quietly, moving among the stalls with calm curiosity. Spices scent the air, fabrics sway softly in the breeze, and the sound of leather and cloth brushing together is music of its own kind. Here, trade is not a frenzy, it is a conversation, a shared rhythm, a negotiation with patience and grace. In the palaces, nobles open windows, allowing sunlight to spill over frescoed walls. Curtains sway, delicate and slow. Servants move in quiet synchrony, carrying water and linen, tending to fires, arranging furniture with careful intention. The city is alive, but its life is a secret kept from the noise of the outside world, a slow melody that only those who truly listen can hear. Even the lagoon itself seems to pause, holding its breath as boats glide across, creating ripples that fade into silver reflections. The water remembers centuries, and in that memory is a kind of wisdom, that everything in Venice flows slowly, that nothing is forced, that patience is the strongest power of all. Children appear on the edges of canals, small and cautious, laughing quietly as they chase shadows across stone. Their feet splash softly in puddles left by the tide, their voices harmonizing with the subtle murmur of water. They learn early, as all Venetians do, that life moves like the lagoon, never abrupt, never hurried, always patient and flowing. And in the quiet corners, the poets and artists linger, observing, listening, absorbing the rhythm of the city. Their pens scratch softly, their brushes glide gently, their eyes capture light in ways the world beyond Venice cannot comprehend. They know that the true soul of the city is not in grandeur or spectacle, but in the hushed details, the reflections, the shadows, the gentle bending of time. Above all, Venice watches and listens. She has always watched, always listened, before kings and merchants and travelers noticed her. She knows the secrets of tides and clouds, of wood and stone, of silence and sound. She teaches patience by example, allowing life to unfold in its own time, in the softest rhythm imaginable. And as the day grows but does not rush, you feel it too, a slowing of thought, a softening of breath, a surrender to the quiet heartbeat of a city that exists on water, in memory, and in dreams. Here there is no haste. Here there is only presence. Here, the pulse of history moves softly, carried on gentle currents, as eternal as the lagoon itself. Pause, and let the city cradle you. Let your mind float with the gondolas. Let the rhythm of water and stone guide you toward rest. Venice before the world knew her is not a place you visit. She is a place you inhabit in quiet, like a memory, like a dream, like sleep itself. As the morning grows brighter, Venice remains soft and deliberate, like a city wrapped in a long, unhurried sigh. The sun spills across rooftops and stretches along stone steps, but never with harshness. Every reflection on the canal is a slow painting, every shadow a gentle brushstroke. Time here does not demand attention, it asks only to be noticed. Along a quiet street, a gondolier guides his boat without haste, letting the tide determine its path. He hums an ancient tune, its notes, floating across the water, merging with the creak of oarlocks and the faint slap of wood against stone. Each note is deliberate, each pause meaningful, as though the music itself respects the rhythm of the city. In narrow courtyards, doors swing open to reveal women carrying water, kneading dough, tending small gardens. Their movements are quiet, steady, and purposeful. Even mundane tasks become rituals, each action imbued with awareness. The city rewards patience, rewarding those who act with care and quietude rather than urgency or noise. Merchants begin arranging their goods for the day: silks, spices, and baskets of fresh fruit. They work with soft hands and gentle conversation, negotiating prices without haste. The water outside murmurs against the wooden hulls of boats, carrying whispers from distant lands, the faint scent of pepper and incense, the salty tang of the lagoon, the echoes of a city that has always existed between the sea and the sky. In palaces, nobles rise slowly, drawing curtains to let sunlight spill across frescoed walls. Servants move in choreographed silence, arranging linens, preparing fires, carrying baskets of bread. Every sound blends seamlessly into the city's quiet symphony, every motion a note in Venice's long, unhurried song. Across the Grand Canal, the first schoolchildren appear, their feet careful on slippery stones. Their laughter is muted, delicate, and in tune with the city's rhythm. They skip along bridges, stop to peer at the water, touch the cool stone of ancient walls, and listen to the stories carried in the movement of the lagoon. Every step they take is a lesson in patience, every glance a memory of centuries. Artisans continue their work, shaping glass, carving wood, and painting delicate frescoes. The glow from furnaces warms workshops, the faint scent of varnish and wet plaster drifts through alleys. Each creation is an offering to the city itself, crafted with care, with devotion, with understanding that beauty grows slowly and cannot be rushed. Even the churches move in quiet harmony with the day. Bells toll intermittently, not to rush or command, but to punctuate the city's natural rhythm. Worshippers kneel, their prayers a soft murmur, blending with the faint splash of oars, the cooing of pigeons, and the whisper of wind through arches. Venice teaches that devotion is not loud, it is patient, present, and steady. Above all, the lagoon continues its timeless flow. Boats glide through channels, their movements creating ripples that vanish almost before they appear. The water carries the city's memories, the city's heartbeat, the whispers of every soul who has lived here. Each wave is a story, each reflection a quiet chronicle of centuries. And here, on a small stone bridge, you pause once more. The sun warms your shoulders. The canal glimmers beneath you. You feel the history in the stones, the patient rhythm in the water, the quiet presence of a city that has lived and breathed long before the world arrived. Venice before tourists, before maps, before fame, exists for those who can listen. She exists for those who can move with her rhythm, for those who can breathe with the tides, for those who understand that greatness is not loud, but gentle, patient, eternal. Stay. Watch. Listen. Let the city cradle you. Let the water carry your thoughts. Let the rhythm of stone and tide and sky guide you toward rest, deeper and slower, as the heartbeat of Venice hums beneath your feet. The morning mist rises slowly from the canals, wrapping Venice in a delicate veil. It moves like a gentle breath, curling around the arches of bridges, threading between narrow alleys, softening every edge of stone and water. The city feels suspended, either fully awake nor entirely asleep, as if time itself lingers here, reluctant to intrude. Along the Grand Canal, gondolas glide almost silently, their reflections trembling in the silvered water. Oars dip and rise in a measured rhythm, each stroke a quiet meditation. The gondoliers move with a practiced patience, their eyes scanning the calm horizon, their minds attuned to the pulse of the lagoon. Each boat is a slow journey, not toward a destination, but through the city itself, which flows like a living river of history. In secluded courtyards, doors creak open to reveal morning routines. Women carry baskets of herbs, their fingers brushing over leaves damp with dew. Men tend to small fires, adjusting kettles and stoking embers with careful attention. Every action is deliberate, as though Venice itself observes and rewards the mindful movement of its people. Even the smallest gestures carry weight. The placement of a stone, the folding of cloth, the careful tying of a rope. Merchants arrange wares along quiet streets. Silks shimmer in muted light, spices perfume the air with subtle sweetness and heat. Baskets of fruit spill soft colors onto cobblestones. The trade here is gentle, almost ceremonial, a conversation between hands and materials, between people and city. There is no urgency, no clamor, only the slow unfolding of daily life, in harmony with the rhythm of water beneath the buildings and sky above. The cathedral bells toll faintly, distant yet resonant. They do not rush the day. They merely mark its gentle passage, echoing softly across the lagoon. Monks kneel in quiet chapels, their whispered prayers merging with the ambient sounds of water, wind, and the faint stirrings of life. Venice teaches patience, devotion, and humility, showing that the grandest truths are often revealed in silence. Above the city, rooftops glisten with dew. Birds, hesitant at first, begin to stir, their calls delicate and fleeting, harmonizing with the gentle lapping of water. Even the wind moves carefully through alleys and courtyards, like a visitor who knows the importance of restraint in a city that has thrived for centuries on calm and attentiveness. Children appear gradually, stepping lightly over stone, their laughter soft, almost reverent. They chase the morning light across canals, their small hands reaching toward reflections that ripple and vanish. They learn early that Venice is a teacher of patience, of quiet observation, of subtle wonder. Each step, each glance, each whisper is part of an unspoken lesson. Life moves slowly here, and only those who move with it truly understand its beauty. Artisans continue their work in light-dappled workshops. The glassblower shapes molten crystal, flames dancing on the material, each movement precise and thoughtful. Painters add delicate layers of color to walls and canvases, their brushes gliding with careful grace. Every creation is a meditation, a reflection of the city itself, patient, enduring, quietly magnificent. Even the lagoon participates in this measured symphony. Water laps against wooden hulls and stone steps with perfect rhythm, carrying centuries of memory. Each ripple tells a story, each reflection preserves a moment, each wave folds into another, creating an endless dialogue between the city and its foundation of water. Standing on a small bridge, you pause. The morning mist curls around your shoulders, soft and cool. The water glimmers beneath you, and you feel the weight and serenity of centuries pressing gently into your awareness. Venice before the tourists, before the maps, before the fame, it is a city not of spectacle but of subtle presence. A city that teaches calm. A city that whispers history in gentle ripples, in soft glows, in hushed streets. And so, you breathe with Venice, slow and deliberate. Your mind drifts like the gondolas upon the silvered canals. Your thoughts settle into the rhythm of water and stone. The city's heartbeat becomes your own, steady, patient, eternal. Here, greatness does not shout. Here, power does not clamor. Here, history flows like water, silent, soft, and everlasting. Rest here a little longer. Let the mist and tide carry you. Let the rhythm of Venice guide you deeper into calm. The morning mist slowly lifts, revealing Venice in its quiet, delicate form. Light spreads across rooftops and canals, softening stone walls and gilded windows alike. The city is awake, but only just. There is no hurry, no clamor, no urgent call to action. Each step taken along the canals is measured, each sound is gentle, each breath drawn is in harmony with the pulse of water beneath the city. Gondolas glide gracefully through narrow waterways, carrying passengers who move with the rhythm of the lagoon. Oars dip and rise, creating faint ripples that vanish almost immediately, as though the water itself is a mirror that resists disturbance. The gondolier's movements are precise, unhurried, an intimate dance with the tides that have guided Venice for centuries. In small courtyards, artisans prepare their day. A glassblower shapes molten crystal into delicate forms, flames flickering in response to the careful movements of his hands. A painter adds soft strokes to a canvas, the color deepening gradually under the quiet morning light. Every creation is deliberate, mindful, a reflection of the patient, enduring heartbeat of the city itself. Merchants arrange their wares with care. Silks shimmer, spices scent the air with subtle warmth, baskets of fruit spill muted colors across stone pavements. Trade here is not a rush, not a spectacle. It is a conversation between hands, eyes, and hearts. Each exchange is gentle, a quiet affirmation that Venice thrives not through haste, but through attentiveness, patience, and grace. The first church bells toll softly, marking time with restraint. Monks kneel within stone walls, their whispers blending with the distant hum of water and the faint stirring of early life. The city listens to them as it listens to all things, with patience, with quiet reverence. Venice itself is a monastery in its own right, each alley and bridge a cloister where the world's urgency cannot intrude. Children appear at the water's edge, toes careful on slick stones, eyes wide with wonder. They watch ripples cross the canals, their small hands reaching toward reflections that dance and vanish. Their laughter is muted, almost sacred, part of the slow rhythm of life. They learn that to live here is to move with the city, to listen to the lagoon, to respect the gentle flow of time. The lagoon itself is alive in this morning stillness. Water laps softly against hulls and steps, carrying whispers of centuries past. Each ripple is a story, each reflection a memory, each gentle wave a reminder of Venice's quiet endurance. Even the wind, when it moves, is restrained, a soft visitor that carries the scent of salt, wood, and distant lands. On a small stone bridge you stand once more. The city stretches before you, timeless and patient. Mist curls around rooftops and balconies, water gleams like liquid silver, and every sound is gentle, measured, purposeful. Venice before the world arrived, before the crowds, the maps, the fame, exists not for spectacle, but for those who notice its subtle rhythms, who breathe with its tides, who move with its pulse. You feel it here, the heartbeat of centuries beneath your feet, the wisdom of water beneath the stones, the patience of a city that knows the value of slow, deliberate life. Each breath you take aligns with the ebb and flow of canals. Each thought drifts lightly, unhurried, suspended in the gentle rhythm of the lagoon. And so, in this quiet moment, you understand a truth Venice has known since the beginning: greatness need not roar. Power need not clamor. History flows quietly, steadily, endlessly. Like water, like light, like breath. Pause. Listen. Drift. Let the soft pulse of the city guide you. Let your mind float on the gentle tide. Let your thoughts merge with the rhythm of stone, water, and sky. Here, Venice is eternal. Here, Venice is calm. Here, Venice is yours to inhabit in silence and in wonder. The city breathes in the space between night and day, a delicate hour when the world beyond the lagoon feels distant, almost unreal. Venice exists here as it always has, a place of water, stone, and memory, untouched by the noise of tomorrow or the weight of the past. The canals reflect the early sky, a soft gradient of blue and silver, each ripple a gentle sigh from centuries of tide and time. A gondola glides silently, its oar barely disturbing the water. The gondolier hums a tune older than any map, a song carried from distant seas and whispered along the shores of Venice for generations. Every note floats in the mist, dissolving slowly into the air, leaving only calm in its wake. In narrow courtyards, shutters are drawn open to let in the gentle light. Servants move with quiet diligence, carrying water, arranging linens, and tending small fires. Each movement is measured, deliberate, as though the city itself watches and approves only those who move with patience. Venice rewards stillness, attentiveness, and the careful unfolding of time. Merchants begin their day in hushed tones. Fabrics ripple gently, baskets of fruit spill muted colors on the stone, and spices scent the air with warmth. Trade here is soft, almost ceremonial, a conversation conducted with hands and eyes rather than loud words. Every exchange honors the rhythm of the lagoon, the pulse of the city, the subtle dance between water and stone. Above, church bells toll softly, marking time not with urgency, but with measured presence. Monks kneel in quiet devotion, their whispers weaving with the soft lap of water, the faint stirrings of birds, and the muted movement of human life. Venice is itself a monastery, each bridge, each alley, each courtyard a cloister where history and memory blend with the present. Children begin to appear along the edges of canals, toes careful on wet stones, eyes wide with wonder. They watch the reflections, reach toward the ripples, and step lightly along bridges as though learning the lessons of centuries in each careful motion. Their laughter is soft, fleeting, perfectly in tune with the city's patient heartbeat. Artisans labor with meticulous care. Glassblowers shape molten crystal into delicate vessels. Painters layer pigments slowly on canvases. Woodcarvers coax intricate forms from blocks of oak. Each creation is a meditation, a reflection of the patient, enduring soul of Venice. Every stroke, every bend of glass, every careful touch carries the wisdom of generations, the subtle grandeur of a city that has survived by grace rather than force. The lagoon flows steadily beneath it all, carrying the secrets of centuries. Water laps gently against hulls and stone, a constant whisper of life and history intertwined. Even the wind moves softly, brushing over rooftops, threading through alleys, carrying faint scents of salt, wood, and faraway spices. The city and its waters exist in harmony, each informing the other, either rushing, either resisting. And here, on a small bridge, you pause once more. The morning light glimmers upon the canals, mist curling like memory over rooftops and balconies. You feel the heartbeat of the city beneath your feet, the rhythm of water beneath the stones, the patient pulse of a place that has endured for centuries. Venice before the world arrived, before tourists, maps, or fame, is not measured by spectacle or noise. It is measured by presence, by patience, by the gentle, deliberate unfolding of time. You breathe with the city, slow and steady. Your thoughts drift with the gondolas. Your mind floats on the tide. The city's pulse becomes your own, calm, patient, eternal. And as the mist lifts, revealing the soft shimmer of morning on the lagoon, you understand the secret of Venice. Its greatness is quiet. Its power is gentle. Its history flows like water, endless, subtle, and serene. Pause here. Let the city cradle you. Let your thoughts drift with the tide. Let Venice guide you into calm, into stillness, into the gentle rhythm of life itself. As the morning settles over Venice, shadows stretch slowly across stone and water, elongating like memories drawn from centuries past. The city exists in these whispers of light and dark, and the subtle interplay between sun and shade, between movement and stillness. Each alley, each canal, each quiet square holds a secret, a story, a pulse that has persisted long before maps named it, long before travelers discovered it. A gondola moves gently through a narrow canal, cutting a faint ripple through the mirrored surface. The gondolier leans on his oar, listening to the soft rhythm of water brushing wood, feeling the pulse of Venice beneath his feet and beneath the vessel. His song is barely audible, an ancient melody that blends seamlessly with the lapping tide, the rustle of leaves, the distant toll of a bell. In hidden courtyards, shutters sway lightly as sunlight filters through, illuminating dust motes that drift lazily through the air. Women carry baskets of herbs and bread, their movements deliberate, thoughtful, almost ceremonial. Men tend fires and wood, arranging tools and materials with quiet care. Every gesture, no matter how small, honors the city's patient cadence. Venice rewards attentiveness and grace, those who move with the rhythm of its waters, not against them. Merchants arrange fabrics, spices, and fruits along quiet streets. Their hands brush lightly over goods, their voices low and measured. Trade is not a clamor but a conversation, a reflection of the city's own gentle heartbeat. Every exchange, every careful placement of an item, respects the balance of the canals, the arches, the bridges, and the centuries that have carried this city forward. Even the lagoon participates in the city's calm. Water laps against wooden hulls, brushes gently along stone embankments, and reflects the soft hues of sky and building. Each ripple carries a memory, a story, a whisper from the past, folding seamlessly into the present. The wind moves carefully, brushing across balconies and rooftops, weaving scents of salt, wood, and distant lands into the waking air. Children step lightly along stone bridges, toes careful on slick surfaces, eyes wide with wonder. They pause to watch ripples fade across the canal, reach toward reflections, and giggle softly, harmonizing with the city's quiet song. They are learning, as all Venetians have, that life flows like the water, slowly, deliberately, with awareness and grace. Artisans labor in dim workshops, their hands moving with the rhythm of Venice itself. Glassblowers bend molten crystal into delicate vessels, painters layer pigments with care, woodcarvers coax intricate forms from blocks of oak. Each creation carries the city's enduring patience, the subtle grandeur of a place that survives not through force but through enduring beauty. Church bells toll faintly, not to command, but to mark the passage of time gently. Monks kneel in whispered devotion, their prayers weaving with the ambient soundscape, water, wind, distant footsteps, forming a quiet symphony unique to this city of canals. Venice itself is a sanctuary, each alley and bridge a cloister, every courtyard a place of reflection. And now, you stand upon a small bridge, watching the lagoon's surface ripple beneath you. Mist curls around rooftops and balconies, sunlight glimmers faintly, and every sound, even the faintest splash or bird call, seems deliberate, meaningful, part of an eternal, gentle rhythm. Venice before the world arrived, before fame, maps, and tourists, is not a spectacle. It is an experience, a living meditation, a city that flows with time rather than against it. Breathe. Feel the pulse of stone and water, the patient heartbeat of centuries. Let your thoughts drift with the gondolas. Let the rhythm of Venice guide you toward stillness, toward calm, toward the subtle serenity that has defined this city for generations. Here, greatness is quiet. Here, power is gentle. Here, history flows like water, endless, subtle, and serene. Stay in this moment. Let the city cradle you. Let the lagoon carry you into calm. Let Venice guide you deeper into its timeless, whispering heart. The morning light grows, but Venice does not rush. The city moves with measured grace, a slow pulse that carries centuries of memory beneath every stone and across every canal. Mist lingers in shaded corners, curling like quiet thoughts around bridges and archways, softening edges, and lending an ethereal hush to streets that have seen 1,000 footsteps, yet feel entirely new in this moment. A gondola drifts gently, guided not by haste but by the rhythm of water. The gondolier hums an old melody, the tune bending and folding into the lagoon, mixing with the soft stirrings of wind, the faint rustle of leaves, and the distant toll of bells. The canal reflects rooftops, chimneys, and arches in a silvered, trembling mirror, capturing the city's heartbeat and releasing it slowly into the air. Courtyards awaken in quiet ritual. Women carry water and freshly baked bread, men tend fires and tools, each movement deliberate, unhurried. Every gesture honors the city's rhythm. Even the smallest actions, tying a rope, arranging a basket, adjusting a lantern, are part of Venice's silent song. This city rewards patience, attentiveness, and grace. Those who hurry or push will find no satisfaction here. Venice flows only with those who move in harmony with its tides. Merchants arrange goods along the streets, silks, spices, fruits, and small handcrafted treasures. Their voices are gentle, their exchanges deliberate. Trade here is not a contest or a clamor, but a measured dance, a subtle interaction with the water, the stone, and the centuries of history that surround every transaction. The city's rhythm is in every gesture, every step, every careful placement of an object. The lagoon continues its soft, constant conversation. Water laps gently against stone embankments and wooden hulls, carrying memories of centuries past, laughter, whispers, footsteps, and the echo of oars. Each ripple is a story, each reflection a moment preserved, each wave a connection between past and present. The wind, too, participates, brushing across rooftops, threading through alleys, carrying faint scents of salt, wood, and distant lands. Children appear gradually, stepping carefully across stone bridges, watching the dance of light on water, laughing softly in tune with the city's gentle rhythm. They reach toward reflections, notice the subtle sway of lanterns, pause to observe pigeons flapping in slow arcs. They learn early that life in Venice flows like the lagoon itself, deliberate, patient, graceful. Artisans continue their quiet labor. The glassblower shapes molten crystal into fragile vessels, flames flickering as if in quiet dialogue with his hands. Painters layer color upon walls and canvas, each stroke slow, careful, meditative. Woodcarvers coax intricate forms from blocks of oak, their attention unwavering. Each creation is a reflection of Venice itself, patient, enduring, and quietly magnificent. Church bells toll faintly, marking time with restraint, not urgency. Monks kneel in quiet devotion, their whispered prayers blending with the sound of water, wind, and distant life. Venice itself is a sanctuary. Bridges are cloisters, alleys are chapels, and courtyards are places for reflection. The city exists not to be conquered or hurried but to be inhabited gently, with respect and attention. And here, on a small stone bridge, you pause. The mist curls around the rooftops, the sunlight shimmers on water, and every sound, a ripple, a footstep, a bird call, seems deliberate as the passing of centuries themselves. Venice before the world arrived, before maps, before tourists, before fame, exists not for spectacle but for those who notice the subtle, the quiet, the eternal rhythm of stone and water. Breathe slowly. Align yourself with the heartbeat of the city, the pulse of the lagoon. Let your thoughts drift like gondolas on silvered water. Let the rhythm of Venice carry you deeper into stillness, into calm, into a state where time itself seems suspended, where history, water, and sky flow together seamlessly. Here, greatness whispers. Here, power is patient. Here, history flows like water, endless, gentle, eternal. Pause. Rest. Let the city embrace you. Let Venice guide you into the soft, infinite cadence of its being. As the day unfolds fully over the lagoon, Venice remains gentle, timeless, and serene. The city does not hurry. It does not seek attention. It exists as it always has, a delicate rhythm of stone, water, and sky, held together by centuries of quiet devotion, patient labor, and subtle grace. The air carries a mixture of salt and sun, the faint scent of wood and flowers, a perfume that speaks of memory itself. Gondolas glide slowly through the canals, their oars dipping in measured, meditative motion. The gondoliers hum tunes older than any map, melodies that have floated across the lagoon for generations. Each note merges with the subtle sounds of the city, the gentle lapping of water, the soft rustle of leaves, the distant cooing of pigeons, the faint toll of church bells. Venice does not shout, it does not demand. It whispers, and those who listen are rewarded with understanding. In courtyards and workshops, artisans continue their careful, deliberate work. Glass glows in the hands of the master, paint deepens on canvas, wood takes shape under skillful fingers. Each act of creation mirrors the city itself, patient, enduring, and unhurried. In every gesture, Venice teaches the value of presence, the quiet power of attention, the sacred rhythm of deliberate living. Children step lightly across bridges, eyes wide, hearts open, learning from the city as they move. Merchants exchange goods softly, mindful of the flow of water beneath their feet and the pulse of centuries above their heads. Monks kneel in quiet prayer, blending devotion with the ambient symphony of stone, wind, and water. The city itself is alive in the smallest details, yet nothing here is rushed or forced. Venice moves as a slow, breathing organism, aware of each motion, each sound, each thought. And now, standing upon a stone bridge overlooking a quiet canal, you sense the totality of the city's essence. The mist has lifted. Sunlight glimmers across the water. Every ripple, every shadow, every distant echo carries history. Venice before fame, before tourists, before the world arrived, exists in this moment, not as a monument to power, but as a sanctuary of patience, memory, and gentle eternity. Breathe with Venice. Let your thoughts drift like gondolas. Let the rhythm of water, stone, and sky guide you into stillness. Feel the heartbeat of centuries beneath your feet. Let the city cradle you, quiet and enduring, as it has for hundreds of years. Here, greatness is silent. Here, power is gentle. Here, history flows endlessly, like water across the canals, like sunlight across rooftops, like breath itself. And in this final moment, understand that Venice is not merely a place. It is a living memory, a meditation, a dream woven from stone, water, and light. To witness it, to breathe it, to move within it, is to become part of its eternal embrace. Rest here. Let Venice carry you into calm, into reflection, into the soft infinity of time itself. The city waits, patient and enduring, ready to cradle all who arrive quietly, who move gently, and who listen deeply. Here ends our journey through the forgotten Venice, a city of water, of memory, of eternal whispers. Close your eyes. Breathe. Drift. And let the serene rhythm of this timeless city guide you gently into sleep.